All right, we're going to go through a TPE 331 pitch control disassembly and what packings need to be replaced to kind of go through and reseal one of these, and how to reassemble everything, make sure everything's right. First of all, when you're taking your pitch control out, you're going to want to have your pointer. Normally on these two screws here, you will have an adjuster with your pitch protractor, and it will have a pointer on this spline shaft. Move your pointer to 100%. That's going to bring this shaft in as far as it can, and that's going to aid you in getting it out of the engine. For just resealing, I would not remove these two bolts or your protractor and your adjuster. That adjustment should not be needed unless you replace, should not be needed to be changed unless you replace this cam. Your pointer will have a pinch bolt in it, and I would slide it up to the end of this shaft without removing it and put a mark between the pointer and this shaft, a punch mark, something that's not going to come off when you clean your parts. And then slide the pointer off. You're going to have a little spacer sleeve as well. Pay attention to the direction of the step in that. The step should go down, but that will come off as well. And once you have your pitch control out, this is what it's going to look like. If you have a 1591, it's going to have a port here. If you have a 2000 RPM engine, it's not going to have a port here. On a 1591, you will have to remove this fitting to get it out of the engine. You have to kind of get the pitch control loose, get the lines off of it, and break this T-fitting loose. And once the pitch control can move up and get some clearance, you can take that fitting out, and then you'll have the clearance to pull it out. Anyway, we're going to start off. You want to take the Allen screws off the bottom plate, and once those are off, you may have to pry a little bit, but your bottom plate should come off. This cork gasket, that's replaceable. This bushing can come out, and there's a couple O-rings in there, but it's not always necessary to replace those. If you have a kit and you just want to replace them, go for it. Also, take your back cap off. All this stuff is loose on this one. It was already disassembled. So you do have two different lengths of bolts here. Pay attention to that. If you get them all scrambled up, the longer ones are for your bottom cap. The shorter ones are for the back cap. When this comes off, this is going to have your sleeve. Things to look for on the sleeve. Heavy scoring, any wear on this thing could definitely cause issue inside of your sleeve assembly. Anything on this mounting boss here, it slides on there and seals on there. So if this is scored up real bad, then that could be an issue. We don't typically see those completely worn out, but it does happen. And then if you get your cam kind of centered, it should just pull out. Nothing to that. That's your cam. And then you have a bushing here. And then your sleeve will just slide out the back. And as far as resealing this, you have a packing and a backer inside this. You have a packing and a backer. The packing goes forward and the backer goes behind it. A lot of times I'll see those all mushed out on the sleeve, but you need to replace those, of course, using a proper pick to be careful not to scratch that up. I would take a quick look at your roller. If you're just replacing this, then don't worry about it, but your roller, if it's got a huge flat spot in this roller, make sure it moves freely, it spins. But if it's got a huge flat spot, that roller's definitely got some wear, and that should maybe consider being replaced. Your cam, same thing. Kind of look where that roller rides in the cam. If it's really scored up, like you can visibly see it's a deep score, then the cam could be a culprit of some of your issues too. But overall, that's pretty much it. And then as far as resealing goes, again, down inside here, you've got a packing with a backer, a nylon backer. The packing goes towards the front of the pitch control, the backer goes towards the back. And then you have a packing and a backer here. The packing from the front of the pitch control is aft and the backer is forward. So I don't know if I can make that focus so you can see it. The white nylon is first, the packing is on the inside. Same here. The white nylon is first, the packing is to the inside. And that overall is pretty much it. There is a packing down in here. If you have this knot removed, it could be difficult to get out. We don't typically see a leak there. So if you're just chasing a troubleshooting problem other than a leak and fully resealing, you don't necessarily have to replace that packing, but if you want to, you can. Again, same thing, just make sure that you use a pick that's not going to score up the aluminum. Okay, when you're going back together, you've got all your packings in. You want to slide your sleeve in. See, there's a notch for that pin to go through. Slide your sleeve in. Now your bushing, it does have an offset to it. So if you find the oiling hole in the middle of your cam and you slide this bushing over and you kind of line them up, in one direction it's going to be offset more than the other. You want it to line up the best you can. Like there, it's almost to the top. If you flip this bushing over, it's a little bit more centered. And that's the direction you want it, is the one that's more centered. And you're just gonna drop this in there, and then you're gonna have to move your slide back until it drops down into the groove. See, your pin is in the groove right there. Then you can go ahead and put your cap on. There are locating dowels here, here, and here, and your gasket will have little cutouts for those locating dowels. And then go ahead and get your bolts put in. Remember, longer bolts go to the bottom. Same with the back. Put your back in. Shorter bolts go there. And these bolts, you don't need to kill these things. I believe, look in your manual, but I believe the torque spec is about 25 inch-pounds. And then that's pretty much it. You should be ready to go back and install. We typically always use a new pitch control gasket. Doesn't matter whether we just pulled the pitch control off and just put it back on. I would always use a new pitch control gasket. They are very prone to leaking. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That should get you set up and resealed, and you should be good to go. And then one final note, after you've got your pitch control and everything reassembled, I would go ahead, get your pointer, minding your mark that you previously made, put your pointer on. You're gonna want to pull on this cam. You're gonna want to pull it up and get your pointer down and snug, and make sure you don't have I mean, there can still be some up and down play on this after you've got your pointer set, but you want to try and eliminate as much of that play as you can. And then I would, just as a check, go ahead and go through and put your pointer as far down as it will go, and make sure you're still lining up with 0 and you're still in your rigging pin hole right. Depending on how it was rigged, that may not have been right when you started. That may be something to note before you start taking it apart. And then go to 40. You should be able to pin it at 40, and it should point to 40, and you should get 100. it's not an exact point at 100. It can be anywhere from 98 to like 105. Any of that is acceptable. The big thing is when you're pinned, it does indicate 40, and when you're pinned at the bottom, it indicates 0. If that is off, I would suggest you can break these loose, set this thing all the way back as far as it will go, and adjust your rigging pin slot in the center adjuster and your protractor so it lines up with 0. Snug everything down and then recheck your 40 and your 100. That whole thing is slotted. So there's an adjustment there to kind of get it all centered up. And what you're looking for is when this thing is at its maximum extent rotated clockwise, that you line up in your rigging pin hole and at 0. And then when you pin it in the 40 hole, it's pointing at 40. And then when you're at your maximum, as far as it'll go counterclockwise, that you're somewhere between 98 and about 105. Typically, we like it to just be at 100. And you can kind of adjust that around if it's not right. Just be aware, if you do go through the process of adjusting all this, when you put your pitch control back in, you may have to play with that rod length off of your Christmas tree to get your 0, 40, and 100 to match back up with your fuel control 0, 40, and 100. So if you don't feel like getting into that rigging mess and you just want to put it back exactly the way it was, I would not suggest breaking these loose. And as long as you have punch marked your pointer to your center shaft and you put it back exactly the way it was, none of that should really change. Anyway, that's an overview of this. And then again, when you go to install it, make sure you set it at 100 to make this shaft as short as it can be, and then you can, you know, finagle it back down into the engine. It's not always the easiest to get it down in there. There's lines and stuff that are in the way, and it's a tight space between the governor and the fuel control. But it does come in and out, and that should get you going and get your rigging back all hooked up, and then you can do a good leak check and move on.